There was once a scientist who invented two things that didn't just take the lives of millions of people around the world, but also ended up destroying his own. These scientific creations caused massive disasters, reduced human intelligence, and even increased the global crime rate. But what were these inventions that brought so much destruction? And who was the man behind them? Let's go back to the year 1908 in the city of Detroit, Michigan. A woman was driving her car when suddenly it broke down in the middle of the road. A man passing by stopped to help. In those days, cars didn't have automatic starters. They were started manually using a crank handle. Turning that handle required great strength, and it wasn't easy for women to do it. So the man stepped forward to help. He inserted the handle, gave it a strong turn, and the car started. But suddenly, the engine backfired, and the handle whipped back, hitting the man hard in the jaw. The injury was so severe that a few days later, he died. That man was Byron Carter, the owner of the Carter Car Company. His death shook the automotive world. Among those affected was Henry Leland, the owner of Cadillac Motors and a close friend of Carter. Deeply saddened by his friend's death, Leland vowed that no one should ever have to risk their life starting a car again. He wanted a safe, automatic system that could start the engine without any manual effort. For this, he hired an engineer named Charles Kettering. After 3 years of research in 1911, they developed the world's first car that used an electric starter motor. The car was called the Cadillac Model 30. This innovation was revolutionary. The car started safely and easily, without a crank handle. Cadillac's sales doubled overnight, but there was one problem. The engine made a loud knocking sound. When engineers investigated, they discovered that the problem came from engine knocking, an explosion inside the cylinder happening before the spark plug fired. This not only made noise but also wasted fuel and reduced engine efficiency. To solve this, there were two possible options: make smaller pistons, but that would reduce power, or develop a new type of fuel that wouldn't ignite too early under pressure. To find that fuel, Kettering hired a 27-year-old chemist named Thomas Migley, Jr. Migley's task was to find a compound that could increase the fuel's octane rating, making it more stable. He tested hundreds of chemical combinations for 5 long years. All failed. Then, in 1923, he discovered something that changed everything: tetraethyl lead, TEL. Adding just a small amount of this compound to gasoline stopped engine knocking completely. It made cars smoother, faster, and more efficient. The fuel was branded ethyl gasoline, and soon it became a global success. But this invention came with a dark side. Within just 2 months of opening a production plant, several workers fell sick, and 5 died. Their symptoms included hallucinations, convulsions, and madness. It turned out the cause was lead poisoning, from the same compound Midgley had created. Lead is one of the most dangerous elements. It stays in human bones for decades and severely affects the brain by blocking neurotransmitters. Despite media outrage, Standard Oil's president, Frank Howard, dismissed the concerns, saying, "We cannot stop something that benefits thousands just because a few people are afraid of it." For the next 50 years, leaded fuel was used in cars around the world. Millions of vehicles pumped toxic lead into the air. In 1978, researchers studying ice cores in Greenland made a shocking discovery. The amount of lead in the atmosphere was 100 times higher than it had been 2,500 years ago. Further studies showed that the lead concentration in human bones and teeth had also risen dramatically. Lead exposure was linked to heart diseases, brain damage, and a major decline in human intelligence, IQ. Researchers also found that the crime rate in countries like the USA, UK, and Canada spiked exactly during the period when leaded fuel was most used, between 1950 and 1980. blood tests of prisoners revealed abnormally high lead levels, confirming a strong link between lead poisoning and violent behavior. It was estimated that in the US alone, 7.5 million people died due to the long-term effects of lead exposure, all caused by Thomas Migley's fuel additive. But that wasn't his only invention. After his success with ethyl gasoline, Midgley was given another challenge: to find a safe refrigerant gas for refrigerators. Back then, cooling systems used dangerous gases like ammonia and sulfur dioxide, which were toxic and highly flammable. Migley created a new compound called Freon, a type of chlorofluorocarbon, or CFC. It was non-toxic and safe for home use. During its demonstration, Migley even inhaled the gas and blew out a candle to prove its safety. Freon quickly became the industry standard, used in refrigerators, air conditioners, and aerosol sprays worldwide. But decades later, scientists discovered that CFCs rise into the stratosphere and destroy the ozone layer, which protects Earth from harmful UV radiation. This led to one of the biggest environmental crises in human history: the ozone hole. Because of these discoveries, both leaded fuel and CFCs were eventually banned worldwide. Japan was the first country to ban leaded gasoline in 1946, and others followed. Since then, the amount of lead in the atmosphere has steadily declined, and the ozone layer has started healing again. Sadly, Thomas Migley didn't live to see the consequences of his inventions. In 1950, he contracted polio, became paralyzed, and died in an accident involving a machine he had invented to help himself move in bed. He never intended to harm the world, yet his inventions caused more damage to the Earth than perhaps any other scientists. Some say that Thomas Migley Jr. had the worst luck in history, while others believe he was simply a tragic genius. A man whose brilliance changed the world, but whose creations nearly destroyed it.